Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. Small town feel with big time ideas. After all, you are entitled to Brad's opinion. Here's your host, Brad Allard.
Well, today, it's a wonderful day in the neighborhood. We have the Mayor, Chris Fletcher, to come tell us all about what's happening with city finances and tax rates and all this stuff.
Hi, boys and girls.
Hi, boys and I didn't want to wear my sweater, but anyway, it's going to be fine. In the weather,
I didn't like you watching you take your shoes off.
I never did watch that show as a kid.
Show.
Sesame Street and all that. Nah, I went into that. When I was like 10 years old, I'm watching history documentaries. Anyway, well, I don't know what I was watching. Probably Gunsmoke with Dad. But anyway, we're going to talk about what's going on with appraisals and tax rates and bills in Austin and the ticker tape parade they gave Johnson County in Austin last week, I believe it was. And everybody's glad to see you and whatever else.
You're going to start explaining what a ticker tape is.
Yeah, I know. They don't know that. These youngins. You know what a ticker tape parade is, Josh?
No.
That's before my time, unfortunately.
All right. Anyway, it's in New York and all that. And they throw ticker tapes, from the stock machines. Back in the day, you'd read this stock.
You'd be looking at this ribbon coming out, and you had the rates on it.
Uh-huh. You know who invented that, by the way? It was Thomas Edison. But, all right. So that's your history lesson, boys and girls. But anyway, we're going to talk about what's going on with the rates and whatnot. There's a lot going on. I believe you have a presentation coming out that we'll kind of preview a little bit. And it didn't sound like you were looking forward to it particularly because the news is going to be kind of tough, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Okay. And so let's talk about the sponsors before we get in this bad mood. Anyway, our place, of course, everybody goes to our place, but it's common. I don't think I've ever had a guest that's local to this area that hasn't been to our place. So it's a pretty well-known hangout and, food's great. Of course, service is great. What I like about it is when I'm not in class, every other Thursday I meet with my Sunday school men don't you do something similar, right? I don't know if you do it at our place, but you meet with your Sunday school class or a bunch of men from your church.
A lot of the mayors and judges we get, we'll use that.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Victor Vandergrift, Tom Vandergrift's son, is our executive board of directors on the TRTC. Mm-hmm. Anytime we meet down here, he wants to go to our place.
Oh, you bet.
So,
what I like is I walk in with these men and they already know what I want, and what I like about that is a continuity of staff. Same with Gina's. Gina's is where I do a lot of my business, so to speak. If I'm meeting a potential sponsor or just taking one out for a pizza because you want to, sponsor cares, we call it, and that kind of thing. And it's always great. I like the music, I like the atmosphere, and the food, of course. Also, supposedly, we're going to have bad weather tonight, so you want to put this phone number in your pocket for John Williams, 817-734-2756. Now, I am a weather agnostic. They're supposed to have heavy-duty storms this morning, and I got sprinkled on, and that's about it. But as far as this next 36 hours, you're supposed to have really heavy storms, so you want to have this number in case your roof starts showing a leak or you want to know if they have any hail damage to it. So at 817-734-2756, that's John's number at Old Pro Roofing. Old Pro Roofing's here in town. They're located in Old Town, and you want to have local people take care of this for you.
Absolutely.
Everybody, make a living. I got it, but these guys will come by and hit the neighborhoods after a bad storm, here today, gone tomorrow. Old Pro's been here forever. It seems, well, not really, about 20-something years. It seems like a long time. But they're right here in Old Town, right across from the bank, and, everybody knows where it is. So 817-734-2756. Particularly, we're going to need to buy local from what we were talking about prior to the show.
Exactly.
Anyway, also, speaking of buying local, Jeff Kelly will help you with that, 817-781-0546. He's with the Withington Agency. He has all the info you need for all the all the real estate, all the deals going on with the rates and whatever else. I was about to say insurance rates. He probably knows about that too, but he knows all about all these things. And so if you're looking to move in and around the area, Jeff can help you with that. It's at like I said, the Withington Agency here in town. You can get him at Jeff at jeffkellyrealty.com. Again, 817-781-0546. And if all that is stressing you out, you need a workout, go to Hot Works, get the infrared workout. It doesn't hurt your muscles and tendons, and it's not like heavy duty throwing the iron around and then you're, stove up for about a week and a half after going to the gym. It's much more beneficial. Michelle Humphrey will tell you what you need, even if you don't know what kind of workout you need. If you know what the results you want, she'll tell you this is what you want. They have 11 different options. So, and it's right there on John Jones. Again, local. Which, if Alex tunes in later, he'll be, which I hope he does. He'll be telling you, shop local. He's almost got me to the point. If I ever go into Fort Worth or anything, I'm going to wear a disguise. Also, thank you to Tiffany Griffin at Local Life Magazine. It should be out this week. I haven't seen it yet, so we'll find out what's on the cover. But locallifetx.com, I'll have that for you as well. 30,000 homes. Many businesses have extra copies to peruse while you're waiting for your car to be fixed or whatever else. So Local Life Magazine, check it out. Good advertising source. And your old buddy, Cody O'Brien, he comes to all the city council meetings. I understand it's hard to get a seat at these city council meetings. They're so fully attended these days. Right?
Oh, yeah, it's just packed.
Yeah,
I wish more people would come to them.
Yeah, I've been to a couple of them I didn't have to worry about getting here early, that's for sure.
Well, and the thing about it is I moved all the executive meetings, not always. Sometimes we have an issue where we have to go and talk to the lawyer about something, but we moved all the executive sessions to the back of the meeting, so nobody's sitting there waiting for us to get back. So it's good, but I would like to see more people attend.
Well,
or at least just log on. You can get online and watch.
Right, and the thing about it is it's like the school board meetings. They don't get that high attendance either, yet when you make a decision about something, by golly.
But you got to remember, when you find out later, it's after the fact.
After the fact. And they said, well, why didn't you tell us? Well, we did. We had 3 meetings. I assume you have the same kind of parameters on meetings like I did when I was down in Austin for those meetings. We could not enact anything until it's had a 3rd reading. We had to have, if somebody proposed something to change about the teacher certification programs, we couldn't, even if it was the best idea we ever had, we could not take a formal vote on it until after the 3rd time it had been presented in public. And so at the quickest we'd ever get it done is 6 months.
You're close. Yeah, it's a little different, but not much.
Mm-hmm. Well, it just, this idea that y'all just kind of come up with something and boom, let's do it. That's not even feasible, but it's also
I've seen
allowed.
that happen in other meetings, not Burleson.
Well, but they weren't.
But I've seen it where they've come in and they say the minimum. They come out of executive session, and then somebody says, "Is there a motion on this?" And they very, very low key make a statement. They vote and rush it through.
That's not a good practice.
That's not. Yeah, that looks bad on any board or council.
Well, you can find out what does go on with Cody O'Brien's Burleson Buzz. That's they use iNews for the radio station's updates, and so it's a good source. $50 a year too. It's cheap, so it's a good subscription price.
I've seen Cody at the council meetings at a long time.
Well, because he just had a baby.
Get out of here,
No, yeah.
boy, girl. Now, say this is one of these things. I'm going to go back and I'm saying, Cody's got a new baby,
That's
and
right.
Nancy will start asking me questions. And so, boy or girl?
Gosh, I think it's a boy.
Oh,
all right.
okay. How much did it weigh?
It was 7 or 8 pounds. It was good. Good. Healthy
It was a
birth.
keeper. Okay.
Right,
And
yeah.
how long? This is what I'll get.
He got this happened about less than 10 days ago.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So
Happy for you, Cody.
Yeah. So he's now a new father. So he'll be back on the saddle pretty soon. And that's why if you haven't seen Burleson Buzz in the last couple of weeks, well, that's why, doggone him having, these
This
kind of
is
priorities.
first?
No, second, actually. Yeah. And also, this is a new one since your last time I've been here. Jerry Kavanaugh with Medicare Counseling and Therapy. Now, to be clear, I've had a couple of people ask about it. Does he help you get on Medicare? So, no, you have to do that yourself. But once you're on Medicare, he can provide you with counseling and therapy and whatever else. And, it's most of it is covered by Medicare, if not all of it. And see, people our age, still.
How old do you think I- No, never mind.
How old are you? Oh, well, I'm not saying.
No.
Okay, you're not going to even put that on the tee for me to knock out of the park. Well, anyway, a lot of people our age don't really have access to counseling.
They don't. People don't understand how many options there are, and there's a window for signing up. And if you miss the window, you can miss out on. You need to have some kind of counselor on this to get you through this.
Well,
And it's constantly changing.
I forget exactly the number, but yesterday at our BNI meeting, we had somebody that does just that. Would help you with insurance, but also getting on Medicare. So if, I'm going to have to.
I would highly recommend hiring somebody.
Well, what he does is that he helps with the counseling, grief counseling. He has a lot of widows and widowers as clients. Also, other types of counseling, because, people our age, either we don't afford it or can't afford it, one of the two. And so he's going to try to help you get around those blocks because Medicare does take care of it. He's at 817-992-8034. And I always spell out his email. It's gfcavana@swbell.net. They're on the third floor of that building where Mambo's is and the Rim and all that. So they're real close.
That's southwesternbell.net.
Yeah. So he was on the show a month ago and I teased him about that, and Taylor did too, about southwestbell.net. He said, you do your mail by Pony Express? So I said, you might want to update your email a little bit there. But
I hadn't seen that in a long time.
Yeah, it's like flash.net. Yeah, it's back.
I wonder if they still have like flag signals or something.
Yeah, I know. Well, anyway, so he's offering that service, and so they are now. Before the show, you were talking about something pretty serious, and that is the potential of this appraisal situation. A new process could cost the city money, and rather than me trying to explain it to the audience, I'm going to let you explain it to the audience because you know what you're talking about.
Great.
Well, I don't want to misrepresent it, but it sounded like the end that I caught was it could potentially cost the city around $10 million. Am I right?
Yes. Yeah.
Potentially.
Okay. Here's and I want to start out by saying that this is not an attack on our CAD board.
All right.
The councils and the ISD were pertinent in electing these individuals. We wouldn't have put them on there if we didn't know they were people of character and stuff of that nature. All of them, their heart is in the right place on this. But what they did is they came up with this 3-year appraisal. In other words, by rule, they're supposed to go out and reappraise every year. When they do that, in our city budget, we are very conservative about a 3.5-year projected growth.
3.5 year or percent?
3.5%. I'm sorry. Thank you. 3.5% projected growth. Okay. The plan that they have would freeze that, and we wouldn't get that 3.5%.
So it'd be frozen at current evaluation levels for 3 years.
3.5 years. Yes, 3 years.
Oh, well, there's Rich Hooper. Okay. Hey, by the way, I was going to tell you at the end of this, Mr. Hooper will be promoting the show on his radio station, on The Journey.
Hunley's on here.
Yeah, okay. So to make sure you don't trash him. Now,
I don't know if we want to pay attention to him. He really whines a lot.
Oh, bless his heart. No, but anyway, but this show will be referred to by 88.3 The Journey. So other people, will be kind of directed towards it. So you'll hopefully get a bigger audience. Hopefully I'll get a bigger audience.
So just to set up Hunley here, Hunley is the creator of the Texas Nonpartisan. Is that correct? Say yes or no, Craig.
It takes a few seconds.
Okay. And he is the individual that promotes the elimination of property tax, which sounds really, really good. I am all in favor of that, but I need to have more. I need a better model of how it's going to be paid, because what I worry about is getting it implemented, because I don't know anybody in Austin that's going to shut one revenue stream off and go to another. I think it's doable. I'm for this. Absolutely, I am for this. And Craig has really created a following on this. We have 2 bills out there that is pertinent to the creation of eliminating another getting rid of property tax and go to use tax.
Well, let me interject here. Let's go back to the
Craig, stay close. I'm going to have to ask you questions.
Well, we kind of skipped over one piece, and that was you mentioned that the appraisals will be frozen at the current rates for 3 years. But you and like all other cities make a budget for the future with assumptions of certain levels of growth and value and whatever else.
Yes.
And if they have taken away that practice of year to year to go to 3 year, where you're frozen for 3 years and they won't evaluate you again for another 3 years, that's going to throw your budgets in the future out of whack.
$10 million worth.
That's where I got the $10 million. We'll come back to Mr. Hunley's plan in a minute. But as far as, because I threw that, we're going to lose $10 million. Oh, by the way, and we started talking to Hooper, but just anybody listening to the show going, wait a minute, why is that? So again, to kind of make it in a nutshell, if they have frozen the evaluations, you're going to have to readjust the budget.
You already have.
You already have done that.
That means fewer roads fixed. The whole thing gets out of whack. Mm-hmm. And these guys did not do this with any malcontent in their hearts. They didn't.
Well, why did they do it then? Because
they're protecting the citizens.
Okay.
And here's a position that I have on this. Mm-hmm. It protects it from valuations going through the roof. And we have had that problem here. We've had a situation where
Mr. Hooper has a question. You want to finish your thought, and then you can address this question.
If properties are going to shoot up, it's a good thing. It protects the citizens, okay? It still hurts the city, but it protects the citizens. But what I'm finding right now, of all the realtors that I've spoke to, is anything that's listed at market value right now is not selling. Mm-hmm. Nobody can definitively tell you why. I know that they're projecting that interest rates are going to go down. They've gone down a little bit. But in order to sell anything right now, you have to come off substantially of the market value.
Right.
The market value is what the CAD uses for our property taxes. You understand what I'm saying?
Right. Yes.
Well, what they're doing would protect citizens from the market value going up. You understand what I'm saying?
Right, because they'll be frozen for 3 years.
Right. There is a provision in the reappraisal document that they don't have to do this. They can back out of it. Well, if prices aren't going up, give us relief for 1 year. Keep this as a tool if you want to, but don't use it when prices are going down, because we still lose our money whether they go down or go up.
Well, Mr. Hunley says everyone's tax still increases 10% a year because of appraisal caps, and new growth brings in more money. Alex has joined us, of course, because he's very interested, not just because he works for the city, but he's very interested in what this process will do for economic growth in Burleson. Mr. Hooper's question is, are there challenges to leading a city that is split between two counties, Johnson and Tarrant? I think this is one. Well, really, you don't. I thought it would be a little bit.
Tarrant's doing the same thing.
Okay.
What I do for Johnson County remains. It will not have an effect on Tarrant. Okay. Tarrant, unless somebody comes up and that board decides to say, okay, we're not going to do that. Hopefully, what I'm going to present to the Johnson County CAD board is going to show them. It might not eliminate their project, but it's not needed right now in the fact that valuations are going down. Market value is going down.
Well, I know my tax went up this past year. And, I didn't freak out about it because I almost was prepared for it because, my mortgage escrow was up for reevaluation in March and got the new bill. But it went up, and not all because of taxes. Insurance had a big part of that too. But as far as what the bills we were starting to refer to with Mr. Hunley about the 15%, and also you were visiting with him right prior to the show. Why don't you explain that to what we were talking about? Well,
the change, and Craig, I'm going to butcher this up for you. Mm-hmm. You can come on Allard show and correct everything.
Well, that's true. That may be a good idea. I mean, I'd love to have him on the show.
And I'm not against anything of improving our situation on taxes. Absolutely. 15% use tax historically with our sales would not cover our debt. I tried to call you back and tell you that, Craig. Didn't have time. But that wouldn't cover our $256 million budget. It would hit 250, but not 256. Mm-hmm. The other issue that I have You remember what happened when Ann Richards did the lottery?
Yes.
Do you remember what that money was supposed to go for?
Schools.
Do you remember what happened to that money?
Oh, it put the money towards schools, and they take the money out somewhere else. So it effectively is nothing.
That's a major concern.
Yeah, it was a net zero.
You remember Robin Hood?
Yes, if I ever wanted to get the administration of a school district upset, I just mentioned Robin Hood, and they'd get their face turned red.
Okay, now
that was a disaster.
And I worry about the small towns, and I don't know how. I'm sure Craig's got a plan on this, and I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. See, Tarrant has a 5% cap. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
The issues that I have with this, I think, are fixable. But you can't fix politicians, and that's really a concern on that. This is a battle worth fighting for.
Has been my concern about a lot of these bills down in Austin, is that they say, well, we're going to pass this bill, we're going to do this, eliminate the property tax, et cetera, but the schools won't be hurt by it.
Money's got to come somewhere.
Yeah, and let's say that they come up with a solution today for now, but what's going to happen 3 or 4 or 5 years from now? And that's, I understand the reasons behind why people get behind the elimination of the property tax, because it goes up every year where your income may not, and it becomes harder and harder to keep your home. And we have these stories of people being basically taxed out of their homes. I get it. And maybe there's a solution to that. Eliminating the property tax altogether and replacing it with a sales tax.
I think it's doable. I really do. I'm on Craig's side on this. But being in business, as long as I've been in business, I need a better assurance of how this is going to work.
Well, Greg Cooper really, explains it well. Yeah, he explains it very well. And so when he comes on here and explains, we talked mostly in the last show about the Cleburne school bond, but the previous show we talked about this, and it makes sense. And he's convinced that it's going to work, and he has a lot of credibility on the issue in my eyes. I don't know, maybe it's just I'm thinking, how would I respond as a consumer if something was, now 8 or 9%
Let me
more?
back this up, though.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm on the Tarrant Regional Transportation Coalition. Okay, and I know it says Tarrant, but we border them.
We're Tarrant. Well,
So I'm privileged to a lot of stuff like the World Cup that's coming. If we had a use tax in place on sales, it would be a gold mine for everybody in this area, because there's 7 games in the World Cup, and they are telling us, and they're already selling out on hotel rooms and everything for 2026. There are 7 games.
I thought there were 9, but whatever.
Well, 7's what I'm remembering right now. It might be 9. 9 would just be better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's 7 preliminary games in there. I know there's 2 of the, when they get down to the playoff or the elimination rounds. I know
might not all be
2,
here.
There's 2 of them are going to be at AT&T. The 2 of the elimination games. Not to get too far in the weeds, but this year's World Cup is going to be larger than any other, because they're going to have more teams.
All 7 games.
Yeah. So we have 7
projected to be larger than one of our Super Bowls.
And the 7 games are guaranteed, and then the other 2 are going to be like when you get down to the final 16, and then final 8, final 4.
Huge. Yeah, it's huge. Yeah. So when you start looking at bills like this, that's a cash cow. That's extra money for towns to do stuff. Now, what about Joshua and Alvarado and places like that does not have the sales like somebody else? Of course, they don't have the budget like everybody else. So there's a lot of issues here that I just needs to be addressed. I'm for it. I'm not saying I'm not for it, but it's something that needs to be addressed on this thing, and it's going to be really hard for it. No business is going to drop one revenue to start another revenue that's not proven. And I think the growth, Craig just said that they're going to start out small. So I will address that situation without naming names. I asked one of our representatives in Austin, let's try to raise the sales tax 1 cent, okay? 1 cent, and do like we do our A and B, our parks and our economic development fund that we get off of it. and then we get 1 cent for our general fund. 1 cent, and give it either to public safety or to go to property tax.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 1 cent. 1 cent would have meant $16 million for Burleson that was not have to be taxed to the citizen on their property tax. And I called the guy up in our connection. I don't want to say a name. I called him up. He was kind of against it, and we started talking about it. And he says, I understand that. I really do. Good. Let me get back to you. I'm in a meeting with the city manager and some others when I get his call. I said, I got to take this. So I walk out into the front of the city manager's office. I said, what do you think? And he says, everybody I talk to likes it. Man, that's great. But nobody will vote for it.
That's about par. That's about par.
Okay, because it makes it look like it's taxes. People don't understand that you have control of what you buy. You don't have control of what your property tax is.
Mm-hmm.
You're waiting for somebody else to tell you how much it's worth and how much you're going to pay. And that's to go back to Craig. They're on the right track. They really are. Getting rid of it and letting people be responsible for what they buy. The dollar amount's going to be tough. Getting it approved is going to be tough. But I think it's the thing to do.
Well, Mr. Cooper's point, and I'm going to just assume Mr. Hundley's point is that yes, you'll be paying higher on one end, but you're going to have more money to pay with it.
Not everybody.
Yeah, and that's
not everybody. That's the key right there.
That's where I have to be convinced, because I look at something like my daughter, for example. She rents an apartment. Would that change in property taxes, which will be a great benefit to the landlord, will that be passed down to her? Mr. Cooper's point is competition between the landlords.
See, I got a problem with that too, because we have a lot of commercial heavy rigs and stuff of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
We have a massive commercial area. Does that take into consideration what we need to take care of our roads?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff going through here.
Well,
if you're gonna divvy up by population, we have I-35 that we have to deal with speeding, wrecks, and everything else. Nobody else does that. When you look at Burleson, we handle all the traffic of the bedroom communities of Cleburne, Joshua, all those outlays out there comes through Burleson. If they weren't using our roads to go to work, we'd have all the roads we needed. We wouldn't need it. Mm-hmm. But they don't have the same issues that Burleson has.
Well, I just, I see the plan on paper, so to speak, and I understand the logic behind it, but we're relying on people like landlords or other, property owners to pass the savings on property taxes to their tenants. I'm not sure that's going to happen, but for various reasons. But Mr. Cooper is convinced that will, because if landlord A doesn't lower his rent, landlord B will to get landlord A's tenants. And okay.
Not if they collude.
Well, yeah, which is illegal, but who knows what happens.
Goes.
Yeah, well, it's like, how can you monitor a private phone call at midnight between three guys? I mean.
But on the other side of property values, I am told that every one of our apartment complexes is undervalued.
That's an interesting point.
It really is. But I don't. How do you set a value on an apartment complex?
They're undervalued
under the system right here.
That's interesting, because I don't know how many tenants would agree that they're not paying enough rent. But
I know.
Yeah, because it's expensive. My daughter lives in Mansfield, but she did live in Burleson, and Mansfield now is a little bit more expensive than what she was paying for about 5 years ago, but it was, it wasn't cheap. All right. For Burleson.
None of them are. It's amazing.
Yeah. And so, there's other issues I have concerns about. I mentioned this before, as far as I've seen any bills, and as far as the people who know more about it than I do, they have not said they're going to tax groceries and pharmaceutical products like they do in Oklahoma. They have sales tax on their groceries in Oklahoma, but they also have a very low property tax, and their state income tax makes up the rest, and they have oil revenues, et cetera. But as far as the grocery stuff and whatever else, if you're taxing stuff that everybody needs, it's going to hit the middle and lower middle income classes more. And the last thing we need is more expensive groceries, because it kind of segue into what I'm talking about on Monday. I'm going to have sitting in these seats the leaders of Promises, Harvest House, and Crowley House of Hope. All four of us are going to talk about what's happening in their food pantries because of grocery prices. And this potentially would add to that, possibly. Or it certainly would.
Well, you got to remember, food's not taxed.
That's what I'm saying, but right now it's not. But would it be later?
I have no idea.
Yeah, and
Craig, you know the answer to that?
Yeah, right now it's not, but would it be later? But also the fact is, other things that they need, like toiletries, for example, those that's going to be more expensive. It's not just when we talk about food pantries, we're thinking about canned food or bread or
maybe there needs to be an exemption for nonprofits. I don't.
Well, but when they buy stuff, nonprofits don't have to pay sales tax of any kind. But but because it's a nonprofit, they have a nonprofit tax number. But on the other hand, though, we're talking about people that donate to them, like people that just go by and give them, that went to the grocery store and bought extra groceries for them.
Well, just donate money.
Well, I guess that's true, but they also have people coming into the food pantries looking for a meal, not just a handout. And I really, in the last few months, because I've been doing this show, and maybe the last couple of years even, since I've been doing this show, I've been involved with them a lot. The Lord has really placed on Robin and I this, responsibility, if you will, about supporting our particular one, which is Promises. It's connected to my church. And I go in there, we go there once a month and donate food, and that place is always packed. I mean, and
Promises is amazing. I've got stories about Promises. It's we donate to them also. Mm-hmm. Center for ASD,
yes,
that sort of thing.
So many
Harvest House. I was on the board for the Harvest House for a while.
She'll be here. Amber, the new leader, has been twice. I'm just saying that I kind of segued off of that a little bit, but that's the impact that this is going to have. I don't know if everybody's sat down and thought it all the way to the end of the story. They see, we'll get rid of the property tax, and that will relieve the burden on some people who are being taxed out of their homes and potentially could lose their homes, or it's restricting their ability to buy other products and stuff and services. And
I don't have an answer for you.
I don't, but you and I can ask the questions without having to have the answers. These people need to have the answers. You know what I'm saying? I don't have an answer for it, but then I'm not responsible for what's going to happen. The people in Austin, they're putting this forward. I hope they have answers. What do they see happening in 10 years or 5 years in terms of economic impact for higher consumption taxes? I'll have maybe $300 more a month to spend, but I don't know if I'm really willing to pay an extra 10 or 15% on dining out, or a gallon of gasoline, or a new shirt, or whatever you want to talk about. 15% will give us $250 million. Mm-hmm. Our budget right now is $256. That does not include the surveys that I have. All right. Mr. Hunley says the elderly have three problems: food, medicine, and property tax. Yes, I agree. And that's why I'm not jumping against this property tax thing automatically, just on a reaction, because I understand. That's a great statement right there. Yeah, I understand this is a true reality for a lot of people, that food, medicine, and taxes hammer the elderly. And so I get it. I was talking to my mother the other day, and she was talking about the medicine she needed for what particular situation she was in. It was like a couple of grand. Now, fortunately for her, she has the wherewithal to take care of that, but a lot of people don't. And I get it. And that's why I'm sure is the motivating factor for Mr. Hunley and everybody else is they want to relieve that situation for the elderly Texans. I just need to know that this plan that they have in place will solve that problem. The numbers that he has right now does not work for Burleson. Okay. The surveys that we had, the growth we have, we need to hire 18 new public safety individuals
officers and support. Where does that come from?
Well, and then if people are looking to the state, they can forget it, and they're looking to the federal government. Well, that's kind of counterproductive or counterintuitive to what's been going on.
That.
Yeah, well, it's like even if you get federal money, it's only for 3 years, and then you have to come up with the rest yourself after that third year. So, because I know that a lot of the bills that Congress will sign or say, we're going to put 100,000 cops on the street. Well, you're going to do that maybe for 3 years. And then those communities have to decide whether they want to keep those cops or let them go. And if they keep them, it's on their bill. And that's why those kind of bills never really do what they say they're going to do. This is the same thing happened, though, with and this is a different type of example, but remember Rick Perry turned down Medicaid increases. And people thought, you're heartless. And I said, look, he's either going to be heartless now or heartless 3 years from now, where they either have to cut that money or cut the people on who receive Medicaid, or have to raise taxes to cover the $3 billion a year increase. So I get it. I just have concerns that this process is going to lead to a negative impact on the lower and middle income classes that we didn't really count on. And because I don't know, it just, I don't, you said it already, people can control what they spend. Well, not always, there's certain things we're going to have. And right now groceries aren't taxed. Mr. Hunley, if you would respond, is there any plans in Austin or even thought or conversation or whispers in the dark about taxing groceries and pharmaceuticals? And hope you're still with us. You can respond to that. I don't think there is, but it doesn't mean there won't.
In other words, you're talking about a sales tax exemption on certain items like the food we have now.
Yes.
So that's pertinent. That, to me, that is right, especially when you have medicine that's overpriced the way it is.
Got that right. And so those are the concerns I have. Here's another thing. It's kind of
Craig doesn't type real fast.
It takes a while to go through the system. If he jumped on it even immediately,
you add the two together,
it's going to take about 60 seconds or so. But here's another thing. It's kind of not so much about revenue raising or not, but y'all use property tax abatements as an inducement to move into the city, right?
Right.
Without property tax at all, there's no abatements.
Well, you got to remember, property taxes are A board. We get that. All of our abatements and stuff comes at A.
Or Mr. Hunley says food and medicine are not taxed. But my point is there a discussion to exempt food and groceries and pharmaceuticals and any of these sales tax initiatives?
I think that's what he's saying.
Well, okay, maybe, I guess so. Maybe you're right. But I just didn't know if he's saying currently, because they are not currently. But I just wondered in the future. I guess my point was they're not in the back of their minds or having these conversations over drinks at the Driscoll Hotel about having, one day doing grocery stores. And,
I think foods that are unhealthy, like sodas and stuff like that, tax them.
They are taxed.
Well, I know.
Yeah, but candy and all
candy, things that needs to be taxed.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Yes to what? Correct. You're not helping us here, bro. Yes. Are they considering it? No. Are they not considering it? Okay.
Yes.
You wearing us out, Mr. Huntley? But anyway.
He copy and pasted that.
Well,
I'm sorry,
but here's the thing. When we got like that big bakery, the French bakery.
Yeah.
They didn't come here just because they like Burleson so much and we're so darn
that's an
swell.
issue. Our property tax was one of the reasons they came here.
But if that's not a factor anymore.
Well, if it's not right now, let's go back to the appraisal train, the 3.5% that we can't put on our budget. We will have to go up our property tax rate to cover our shortfall.
And if there's no property tax.
And if we go up, businesses look at that and say, well, we'll go somewhere else.
Well, they come to Burleson because of its location and because they have a community that knows that supports businesses. But
they also look at the financial side.
But they sure do.
Absolutely.
And if there's no property tax issues, I don't know if it just the ability to say come to Burleson and not to Mansfield is taken away. At least that one.
Texas
tool.
grows because we don't have an income tax.
Yeah,
That's the main thing.
and we never will.
Probably not. Probably not.
Oh, it's in the Constitution, so we have to change that to do it.
Well, I don't rule anything out with this bunch.
This bunch, they would sooner eat ground glass than have an income tax in the state.
So we get business because of the state of Texas, but we compete with other towns
Right.
because of our property tax.
But we don't. If that's taken away from us, there you go. Well, let's see what Mr. Huntley has to say. It's in our bill, and 60 other taxes eliminated. And yes, I'm at work trying to keep up with y'all. And forgive me. We forgive you, Mr. Huntley. Somebody's got to be out there working.
We'll talk slower.
Yeah, we'll talk.
That work for you, bud?
Okay. But anyway, I know that the schools are also very concerned about all this. Now, I got educated a little bit by Mr. Cooper when he talked about the restrictions placed on the school districts about their ability to speak out on this. I have asked for a response from BISD and kind of a general out there for the other school districts, and they basically are not. They don't want to get involved in that kind of fight because they think Ken Paxton's going to drop the hammer on them like he did a couple of districts north of us, and because they can't really respond in a way that they think might not violate the law. Now, I don't personally. I think they could address the issue without partisan.
You wouldn't want to put them in that position.
But I didn't. I'm not going to put them in that position. Is right.
Okay, and
I mean,
I have no knowledge of the ISDs or anything of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel sympathy for the fact that the state puts the Texas Board of Education puts unfunded mandates over them over and over and over.
Yes.
Okay, I looked at it. They have over 80 administrative employees, unfunded.
Yes,
For the most part, as far as I know, unfunded.
But we were going through some economic hard times, you might say, about 15 years ago. A lot of people said we need to cut the school budget. And the finance director at the time came to our school, came to the schools to say, look, this is what's happening. Because we were all worried about our jobs and that kind of thing. He said 40% of the budget really is untouchable because we have to spend 40% on these things. So really the portion of the budget that could be affected, almost all of it had to do with personnel. And some of the personnel were exempt because, you have to have a special ed teacher, you have to have a nurse and all this other stuff. The rest of us were all hanging out there. And what BISD ended up doing is they didn't lay off people; they just didn't replace people that left. And so
Through attrition.
that
I understand.
reduction in force routine, and that boy, that was a stretch for about 3 or 4 years. And we had big classes and things of that nature.
And let's make this perfectly clear. Teachers aren't paid enough. When you have a job and can't justify the price of the college to get it done, something's wrong. So my heart goes out to all of them. My wife's position.
Right, she was a teacher, right?
Yeah, she had these massive classes. She had 1 or 2 that took up all of her time, so it made it hard to teach the others.
She was 3rd grade, is that right?
No, she's kindergarten.
Kindergarten, okay.
When you have troublemakers in kindergarten, something's wrong.
Well, I've said that before. I've had classes. I had one class. My biggest one was 46, and 43 of them were fine. 3 of them I went on to take outside for a beating because they disrupted the whole thing. I've had classes of 12 where one kid you want to take out for a beating. That
takes time away from teaching.
Right.
And so, I'm sympathetic to the ISDs. I probably don't agree with all the spending they do, but
well, neither did I. But it's interesting because when I was in the classroom, I had a lot sharper opinion about how they spent money. But now that I've been out of it, I can look at things more globally. I still think there's certain things that we could probably do without, but a lot of things, okay, I see it now more clearly. But
I see the state involved too much.
Well, that's true, and I'm not going to. I want to compare everybody in my career.
Let's talk
or
about
whatever.
something more fun.
Well, just hang on. I want to say this about Dr. Jimerson. I honestly think that Dr. Jimerson is very, very cognizant about the budget. Okay, and I don't know every superintendent I ever worked for was. All right, they'll all say that they were, but I remember one in particular whom I shan't name, that I don't know if he ever really took care of that into the business, but I do believe that Jimerson does. Even if, and of course, if you want to go through the budget and say, well, I don't agree with that and I don't agree with that, fine, get after it. But I think, in totality, they do a pretty good job. But you want to talk about something more fun? Let's do that.
Well,
you went something more fun, okay?
Well, I don't know about that. I didn't realize the Capitol had that many steps in it. Mm-hmm. But we did go. Mm-hmm. Some people wanted to know, why did we go to Austin and do that?
Why wouldn't you go? I mean,
Well, the thing about it is we have to have the endorsements of our reps to get federal funds on things. Like we got a grant out right now for our 2 new ambulances that's looking really, really well.
You had people critical about your trip to Austin?
I heard that. I don't get on Facebook much anymore, but I heard who's running the city, who's doing this, who's doing that.
We know who's running the city. It's the city manager.
Yeah. He was with us.
Okay. So. Well, we know how.
But the whole thing is the fact that we have to work with other people. The endorsement we got an endorsement for our grant from Congressman Williams. Mm-hmm. We got our county judge, Bedecker, and our 3 reps, Helen and David and our senator, Phil King. Mm-hmm. All of these people signed an endorsement for our grant, and it's looking really, really good. That'll be $1.4 million. We are starting to learn what's available to us and how to manage it, and we have to really be on the same page with these reps that we have to get anything done.
It's just funny that people be critical of that, because that's what you, as a mayor, are elected to do, is represent the city with the other governments. I mean, that's part of the job.
And here's the thing that I really, really like right now. The towns in Johnson County are working together. Mm-hmm. We have really come together on our roads. Hats off to our county judge for the master plan. But we don't get any attention anymore, or didn't used to, but now we do. When we show up, about a half dozen mayors looking at you, we're on the same page. And I'll give hats off to the mayor of Cleburne. He supports our road here. He is good friends with Morris, which is over the Tex dot. He's good friends. He's promoted us. This is what we do.
That's why I had Mr. Weathers on, because as far as in kind of a programming sense, I'm trying to expand the neighborhood to include more in Cleburne, because Joshua, Burleson, Cleburne are becoming almost like DFW in a sense.
Exact same thing.
Yeah, they work together.
Mid-cities and Dallas-Fort Worth.
Yeah, and that's kind of like we're doing here, is that we're no longer, because when I moved here back in 1991, there was some distance between us, not just geographically, but, between the communities. They were all isolated communities. Now that we've kind of grown together, I think it's great that we're working together. But here's some fun things to talk about, because I bet one of the fun things of the job you have is when you represent the city, you get to go to some of these nonprofit events. And we got a bunch coming up, and I bet your schedule's fairly full too. So, but I've been promoting some of these nonprofits. So let's run through them, Josh. First of all, tonight there's a chili cook-off. I hope you hear this in time. I've been promoting it, but there's a chili cook-off at Lone Oak for scholarships for Johnson County students by the Burleson Area Realty Group. And, chili cook-off and, all that goes with it. And there's some auction items and things of that nature. Alex Bedecker is running this little thing, one of our council members. This is her group that she's with. And they meet at our place too, I believe. At the same time, that little Sunday school group gets together and whatnot. But so a chili cook-off, Lost Oak, it's always a great place to go out there. That place is really a good place to have these events.
It really is.
It really is. Also, this Saturday, we have 3 events Saturday, so you can pick and choose or go to all of them if you want. One is a Revive. It's a men's conference at the Uprising Church in Joshua. It's $25 for a ticket, so you get for the meal and for the materials and help with the speaker fees and whatever else. But it's a men's conference about men's relationship with Christ, with their families, with each other and whatnot. And it's an all-day thing over at the Uprising Church in Joshua. So you can do that. And then also that afternoon, They have a chili cook-off there too, so you get your fill of chili. This is for Re-Inspire. This is the group that helps the foster kids who are graduating out of the system adjust to adult life. And it's over in Alvarado, over in that Pioneer Park, Settlers Park. And so you have that from 11 to 5. The weather should be okay by then. By the way, for both these events I've been talking about that are going to be outdoors to some degree, it's supposed to be bad after midnight and be done like early morning, Saturday morning. So Friday, tomorrow's going to be kind of full, but there you go. So you can go down to that and help out with Re-Inspire. This is represented by Yellow Rose Propane, so thank you for that. Then that night, Center for ASD, Light Up the Night over at the Brick with Lisa Boltinghouse. I asked her about a week ago, how's the status about space?
Lisa.
Yeah, and they're still working on it. They have some things in mind, but she really wasn't comfortable in saying, well, here's what we're thinking, because, there's all these variables.
A lot of players.
Yeah, a lot of moving parts. And so,
Absolutely.
So rather than say, well, here's what we're doing, and then have it fall apart the next day.
They'll get there.
I sure hope so, because they sure add a lot, don't they? I mean, I don't know any other community that has that.
There's such a need. I mean, these families that have to deal with this, they don't have anybody.
No,
it's nothing, and it's not.
I was talking to somebody in another community that's not very close to here, and I don't know how we got on the topic about it, but I started talking about the nonprofits in this community, and like, you really have something that people a group that does this, for autistic people. They I wish we did, that kind of thing. So it's a valuable. All of them are valuable assets. I don't want to, elevate one over the other, because all in their lanes do such great work, and this is a busy time of year for them. This is where they do a lot of the fundraising. So Light Up the Night at the Brick is 6 to 9, and go have a good time there. And then we have on the 26th, we have the Walk for Life at Next Step Women's Center, another great outfit. Megan and Summer do a great job over there. And I've had them on the show numerous times, and they come in, and every time they bring their stats with them, it's more than the last time I met them. I mean, that's how much business they're getting, and because it's becoming more and more known that this is an option for people that are having these kind of situations. So 11 to 9, sponsor a runner, go on their page, donate or become a runner or whatever else, or a walker. Actually, this is a more leisurely event. It's a walk for life, not run for life. That'd be kind of an odd thing to call running for your life. No, that's not a good fundraiser. Walk for Life is better. Also, the next day, again at Lone Oak, we're going to have Vineyards of Vibes. That's going to be 4 to 7 for the Harvest House. My bet is I'll see you there. Is that a chance?
Might be.
Yeah, it might be. No, you'll be there. I know you're a big fan of Harvest House. I mean, you were one of the original board members, were you not?
Not original, but the first time I got a call, Larry Poole asked me to be on it, and I didn't even know what Harvest House was. Mm-hmm. Well, and I went by and walked through, and I kind of won me over.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of like me in Promises. It's like I knew it was there, but I had a couple of people in my Sunday school class that worked there, and they brought me in and said, hey, you need to check this out, talk about it on your show and that kind of thing. And that's why I think God said, that's what you're going to be doing. Once a month, go down there and donate, because I said so.
I've had 2 opportunities to be on boards. One was the chamber, and one was Harvest House. That when I was on that board, when we got Sherry Seacrest on the chamber, that was the face of the board. Mm-hmm. She was phenomenal. And then Harvest House, the face of that board was Jennifer.
Yeah.
Jennifer's the one that turned it around for us and made it fly. Yeah.
Now she's doing her Roots and Reflections, end of life planning business. So it's a free plug.
She'll be great at it.
Oh, she is. I mean, we've talked about it because I've had to do this with my parents. It's not much fun, but it has to be done. But back to Harvest House, April 27th, 1 to 7. That's a Sunday afternoon.
Help them out, everybody.
You bet. And then Lisa Schwartz going to be doing her thing.
Citizen of the Year.
Yes, I saw that.
That's pretty cool.
It's well earned. Well deserved. I guess I'll have to wait till next year to win. Doggone it. I look at who the candidates were for Citizen of the Year and said, I wouldn't even be able to carry their bags. I mean, there's some high quality people that got nominated for that award. And so Lisa earned it. And it's May 10th, it's going to be her City on the Hill at over BHS. And that's a big deal. And I've been to that last couple of years, and it's not a lot of these fundraisers. They're not just you're doing a good thing. It's a good time. It's fun. I like doing these things. Harvest House. I've been to Vineyards of Vibes. It's go there, listen to music. Have a glass of wine. I don't know how much wine you drink. I bet not much.
I don't like wine.
Yeah. But see, that's why we need to have, Vineyards and Dr. Pepper. That doesn't sound right. It's not that great. But anyway, now I mentioned earlier that this show and the others will be promoted on 88.3 The Journey, which is my wife's favorite station. Therefore, it's my favorite station.
There you go.
That's all we
Happy
hear.
wife.
Yeah,
Happy life.
That's right. When we're in the car and she's in it and I'm in it, we're listening to this 88.3. So, Rich, I appreciate what you do. So, give us a shout out tomorrow morning, I guess, and say to tune in the show because, he was when we got together about 6 weeks ago to kind of collaborate. He said, we provide Christian music, but Christians want to know about property taxes too. They want to know about what's going on. So. There you go. So he'll give you a shout out. And on community radio, I'll have this on at 6 o'clock tonight, 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. As far as next week's show, I'll have those on community radio, including an extra one I'm going to kind of crowd in. I was asked by 2-3 people, what do you think of these tariffs going on? And, I used to talk more about these things, but then I kind of been evolving towards nonprofit shows and things of that nature. And so 9 o'clock, I'm going to talk about the impact of tariffs, and it's much more gray than it is black and white. Everybody says it's bad or it's good. Well, it's a little of both. And so I'm going to try to explain as best I can.
This is an oversimplification for me. Mm-hmm. And I've always had this deal. It's called a golden rule philosophy. Mm-hmm. If a country won't let us buy land in their country, we shouldn't let them buy land in our country. And that's the same thing with tariffs, in my opinion. Now, that's an oversimplification. I'm not versed in this. But before we quit, I want to say one other thing about the nonprofits.
Sure.
Okay? I am honored to be part of Burleson with the heart set that Burleson has. Our community, you do not understand how many times they step up to help other people, and they don't want their name mentioned. They don't want to say nothing. But it is such a great job to call somebody up and say, you think you can help out on this? Yep.
And we're talking about just private citizens.
Absolutely.
I raise money for the Burleson Opportunity Fund, and I call them up and say, hey, I hate doing this because I'm not really good at shaking people down and all that.
I hate doing it.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable, right? But people say, hey, don't worry about it. Here, I'll be glad to help.
What do you need?
Yeah, that's the response I get. And, I mentioned before, my show started off in one thing, but it's evolved over to this. I think this is what the Lord would have this show be, which is promote city events and nonprofit events and, local news and whatever else. I can vent about whatever occasionally, but I don't do nearly the political shows as many as I did before. And I'm okay with that, because this is more, more productive, you might say. But anyway, so again, I'm to kind of get back on where I was. The radio station will have your show on tonight at 6 and then 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. I have 2 shows on Monday. I'm going to have a short one on the terrace, like I mentioned, at 9 o'clock and 11. I've already mentioned I'm going to have the 3 ladies that run the food pantries. I'm going to talk about the potential impacts of the cuts they're making at USDA. Plus, the grocery stores are not giving them the wholesale discounts like they used to.
Hopefully that'll change.
Well, hopefully that'll change. And we'll talk about that. And then Tuesday I have Victoria on. And she'll probably verify.
Better limp in.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that. She's wearing that boot and all this other stuff. We're going to talk about, she'll talk about what we talk about today, the budget and all that. I'm sure she's, concerned like all of y'all are. They're making your job hard, aren't they?
It's tough. Mm-hmm. It's tough to balance everything. It's guaranteed if the presentation on the 10th doesn't go well, it's guaranteed that we'll have to go up on the rate.
Where is this presentation being given?
This is the Johnson County Central Appraisal District Thursday night meeting.
I've never been in that
6
room.
o'clock.
Where is it?
Well, they're having it. The audience has grown so big that they're having it at the Cleveland Convention Center now.
Ooh, that's a big crowd.
Yeah. So, and I expect there's going to be a lot of mayors, city manager, and our finance guy is going to be with me.
Hundley will be there, right?
I'm pretty sure there'll be paybacks on this show. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, it's an important, and I'm not calling these guys out. They're good guys, but the fact is that it's going to hurt the city, all of these city budgets, if they do this.
Well, your presentation is a week from today at 6 o'clock in the Cleveland Convention Center. So, you know, it's pretty important news. Right. And I'll see if O'Brien will be there to cover it if he's off of paternity leave. Who knows how long that lasts? You know, for me, I'm still on paternity leave. Josh, how you doing over there? You woke?
Yep.
Okay. I just woke up. You start like, oh wait, am I still here? Anyway, so we'll see you Monday, and you try to stay out of trouble.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate you.
All righty. And y'all take care. Check out the show. Share this with your friends because, Burleson, this is important news. So, and you heard it here first. I'll see you later.
Get more involved, Burleson.